whatever the code we are going to write, right? It is nothing like, it's all mostly human understandable things which will be easily understood. Okay, so if at all we have to start working on, I have a question on the basis of OOPS concept. What is the difference between the JavaScript and TS? It's a similar, mostly, Amaresh. Like when you say OOPS concept, right? What is the similarity we have? What are the OOPS concepts we have? Or else, like if you see the OOP concept of your JavaScript, it will be supporting something called as objects. It is going to support something called as classes. It is going to support something called as inheritance. It is going to support something called as polymorphism. It is going to support something called as encapsulation. It is going to support something called as data abstraction, right? So these are the features, like any programming language which supports all this is going to be a object-oriented programming language. Now, when JavaScript supports completely this, in the same way, polymorphism is the one where JavaScript completely doesn't support, because we there is no concept of overriding and overloading. There is no concept of extending multiple classes. The same thing gets applied even in your TypeScript also. Okay, other than that, only thing is we could able to define a interface here. And interface also we will be using so that we can define the structure of an object. Okay, whatever the object we are defining, under that object we are going to have set of properties with set of agreements, like what data type they have to hold, and if you have set of methods with the what agreement, like return type, etc. So that is what will be there. Other than that, everything is going to be same. Okay, well, as I said, right, it's just similar to the JavaScript. Only thing is having a type specific. Okay, from the perspective of the object oriented, both are going to be same. Any more questions before we go forward? Okay, now next part what we have is obviously whenever you're going to have JavaScript to be executed, we are going within the browser. Browser itself, we never executed JavaScript within your command prompt. Instead, we are executing within your browser itself, right? Because browser by default holds the JavaScript compiler. Okay, and that executes the JavaScript code, whatever you give. You don't need to have any specific JavaScript compiler separately to be installed within your system. Whereas coming to your TypeScript, we should go with a TypeScript compiler. In a shortcut, we also call it as TS code. Okay, TSC. Okay, so TypeScript compiler has to be installed in our application. As we discussed yesterday, any piece of code, whatever you're going to write, that will be compiled by the TypeScript code. In compilation, there are two phases. One is checking the syntactical error, and the second thing is converting into JavaScript code, right? So in order to do that, we need to install the TypeScript compiler. So how you're going to install this TypeScript compiler? So this is how it is: npm install -g globally. This TypeScript module has to be installed. Okay. So we have this TypeScript installer. Let's go with the command prompt. Okay. So once I install this guy, npm install -g globally. Okay. And once it is installed, if at all you have to check that, you simply say tsc TypeScript compiler hyphen version. So the current version what has been installed is 5.9.3. So yesterday we even discussed that the latest version of the TypeScript is 5.9. Okay. So once you install this TSC TypeScript compiler, now you have the options to take your TypeScript code and execute and get it done the way you want it. Okay. So I have a question, Amrish. What if I want to declare a variable first and decision type later, like JavaScript? Is possible? Yes, it is not. It is not mandated that we need to declare the variables with initialized values. You can just declare. Are you saying like declare the variable and decide type, it is not possible. When you're declaring a, while declaring, you need to specify the type. Initialization, that can be done later. Okay, but anyway, I'll just discuss about the structure and syntax and all. Okay, after this TypeScript compiler is there, then what we do is, let me create, or else let us say, going to create a separate folder where we say TypeScript. Okay, and that, let us say, uh, hello world dot ts. Any TypeScript code, whatever you're going to write, it should be having an extension as .ts. For example, I'm going to say console dot log hello everyone. Why the reason we don't have any separate method to console log? Boss, whatever the JavaScript methods we have, every JavaScript method is going to work as same in your TypeScript. Okay, it is going to be similar. Okay, before that, if I say var a is equal to say some 20, if I say var b is equal to say some 50, I say var result is equal to a plus. Okay, I say console dot log the sum is plus result. Okay, this is how I'm writing my JavaScript code within your TypeScript. Let us see how you're going to execute this. Go to your command prompt. I can't go to the browser directly. Where are you here? Okay. So in order to compile this guy, if you see here under my folder, we have this guy. Why the icon is showing something like this? Okay, so if you see, it is going to be a TypeScript file. Hello world.ts is the one what we have created. Okay. Now, in order to execute this guy, first thing what I need to do is I need to compile it. How you going to compile? ESC, okay, TypeScript compiler, and we are going to specify it as a file. Now, when I execute it, I enter this guy. So now the compilation happened. Under compilation, what all things happened? It has checked for all the syntactical errors. It has checked for, it has checked for the syntactical errors. And once it is all successful, it has went to the step of converting the code into the JavaScript code. If you go into your folder, do you see a separate file? JS file is getting executed, is getting created automatically? Yes. Now, if you want to execute this guy, not the TypeScript, now I say node your hello world.js. This is how TypeScript code got executed. But the question is, where you written the TypeScript code, boss? You have written the JavaScript code only. Yes. So under the TypeScript, anytime you want to declare these variables, right? As I said, like the first thing is type specific. The problem what I have is if I say A is equal to Mr. Raj in later, this is also going to work fine if it is JavaScript. But if you see in your TypeScript, is it not asking, boss type string is not assignable type your type number? Why the reason? When I say var a equal to 20, by default, it is making the data type as number. Okay, whatever the default value you are assigning, based on that, it is automatically treating the data type of that guy as a number. Now let us save this, come back over here, and when I say compiler, TypeScript compiler, you see it is going to throw an error. But that is not the case with your JavaScript. If I take that in your JavaScript, it is going to work the same. I mean, JavaScript allows the same variable to be changed. Anytime you want any variable data type, you can change it. But at the same time, what if like I want to specify what is the data type it has to hold? You know what we are going to do? We say the syntax, what we have is, okay, variable, okay, I say syntax. You say, okay, var or let or const. Okay, these are the three different variables you're going to use to declare the variables which are going to define the scope of that. You say variable name colon, what is the data type? This is how you're going to define the variable with a data type. Example, I say var user name colon string. So you can only store the string type of data type under the username. If I say var is fee paid is colon boolean, which indicates that you can only store the boolean type of value within this variable. In the same way, var say something called as user details. Okay, colon. You can say something called as null. Okay, you can say, I'll discuss about the data types anyway. We'll list out all those. So this is how you're going to declare the variables. Now let's go back here. Now I say, I don't want to declare this var a, b, something like this. Instead, I will be declaring them. I say var a colon something called as number like this. In the same way, I say var b colon number like this. Now it is possible for us to assign like this. In the same way, I say var username is equal username colon something called a string. Now, if I say username is equal to something called as true, it is going to throw me an error. You see, this is the advantage what we have. Type specific, we don't need to wait until for the execution. At the time of writing the code itself, we are so the errors has to be fixed. We don't need to wait for until it gets deployed. Am I clear? Pallavi, why you are using var, not let? Right now, I don't have any block scope, right? For example, if I'm declaring the variables globally, do we have any difference between var, const, and let? No, right? So if I go with any module specific, then I'm going with the let keyword. Okay. So now if you see, this is going to throw me an error. Now let us say so and so, and I will even show the username is plus username. Okay. Variable username is used. Okay. It is declared. Say username is equal to Mr. Raj. This is what the TypeScript code what I have written. Let us come back to the compiler. Now I say TypeScript, please do the compilation of this. It is going to, what do you say, re-execute this or recompile it. Now I'm going to execute this. Node, like Node is also capable of executing the JavaScript code. I'm using the Node one. Otherwise, you can take it to the browser and you can even run that. If I click on enter, sum is so and so. Now, let us see the output of this. For example, how the JavaScript code has been written here. Okay, when you go to the compiled code of this guy, I am not doing any type of byte conversion. Okay, data bytes, like I mean converting into byte code. We are not TypeScript is not at all. TypeScript compiler is not going to do anything regarding that. Excuse me. So it's not doing any data type here. Excuse me. So it's not doing any type of byte conversion here. You see, it just removed all the data type declarations. And you say, if I come to this guy, I mean, I go with the JavaScript code, I say username is equal to something called as true. You see, JavaScript is not at all going to throw me an error. But user has not written this. User has written TypeScript code. Okay, so this is how every TypeScript code, whatever you create, you write, that will be converted back into the JavaScript code. Swati, are the scopes of variable is same? Yes. Or TS or any difference? No, not at all any difference. The scope is going to be same. Okay, if you declare anything globally, any keyword can be used. If you want module wise, go with the let keyword, sorry, block wise, use the let keyword, module wise, var keyword or const. Any questions to this?
How to define array and object?
We'll come to that. I mean, I'll just list out what are the data types we have, how you're going to create arrays, objects. We'll go to that. To hear any questions. What is the reason we need to give the type at the beginning? Is it only difference between JS and TypeScript? Again, coming to the starting, the forget about the TypeScript and Java. I mean, not only at the beginning, right? You can declare wherever you want it. I have just, for example, if I have to go for this, I can even do this. It's not mandatory that all the declarations should be at the very starting. Okay. Now, let us list out what all the data types being supported. Data types being supported in TypeScript. Did I add it at notes? I think no. Okay. So what are the list of data types being supported? The common things are boolean, boolean, string. Okay. There is something called as null, undefined, and yeah. So this is what the things which we have in your JavaScript. Added to that, we have something called as any. Okay. We have something called as unknown. We have something called as never. Uh, never. Yeah, I think like these are the new data types which are being supported in your TypeScript. Okay, null and undefined until that you are clear. Any, what do you mean by this any? For example, I say that where uh, um, user info, if you're not clear with what is the data type which is going to be coming from your server or being given by the end user, you can simply say something called as any. So any indicates that any type of data can be added here. Now I say user info is equal to something called as Krish. It has automatically become a string now. Now I say user info is equal to say some 30. You see, you can put anything. Now I say user info is equal to something called as true. It has become into Boolean. Okay, so based on the value what you're giving, it will automatically decide. This is the feature what we have in your JavaScript, right? And Sonali, DSC Hello World TS is used for compilation and run the program. No, it is not running right, Sonali, because Hello World.ts, DSC compiler is capable of just compiling and converting the script code into JavaScript. If you have to run the piece of code, by you need to do that by using Node or your browser, JavaScript. Okay, now, for example, let me create a separate file. I'll say data types demo.ts file. Under that, I say let a colon boolean is equal to something called as true. What is the type of? Okay, let me make it. Okay, okay. I say value is a boolean. My expectation is if I say console.log something called as value, it's going to throw me the value out of it. What if like I want to know what is the type of the data which is being there? I again go with the same JavaScript way. I say console.log type of something called as value like this. Okay. So once you save this, go back to the command prompt. I say tsc data type demo.ts. I say node data type demo.js. You see, this is how it is coming. So again, what is this method, boss? You're using the TypeScript method, sorry, JavaScript method. TypeScript is a superset of your JavaScript. You can just make use of whatever the methods been there in your JavaScript. The same can be used. Okay. Srikanth, can we use both JavaScript and TypeScript in the React? Yes. I mean, forget about React. If I ask you, if I'm creating one of the DS file, then is it is possible for me to write JavaScript code and TypeScript code inside this? What is the answer for that? Why it is no, Nagamani? It is yes, right? Because if you see here, I'm writing this. This is the TypeScript code, line number two. Right? The line number three is JavaScript code only, right? Nagamani, hope you're clear. Amresh, could you please describe data type any little bit more? Any in the sense the way you are writing the JavaScript. If I say var user info colon any, that means that this variable is capable of holding any type of data type. You are not going to restrict it. For example, as I say, user info is equal to something called as Raj. I say user info is equal to something called as 20. It is taking number. But now, if I say where user details here, now I say user details is equal to something called as true. Now I say user details is equal to something called as fresh. Why it is allowing this? It should not allow. It is allowing.
We can write as strings at line number 10.
No, no, I don't want it. Earlier I have shown that if we declare a variable, it will automatically, okay, I'll say something called as,
Boolean.
yeah, sorry. Just give me a second. Listening. Sorry, guys. Okay, so now if you see the difference, right, when you're declaring the variable and initialization. So here you are not specifying the data type of this, but when you're initializing the variable at the time of declaration, it is automatically decided it as Boolean. Later, if you try to change that guy, it is not possible because it has automatically mentioned it as, I mean, in the memory, the variable is like only for the Boolean even though you're not specify the data type, but you have given the initialized value. But if you don't specify any initialization value, you can go with user info is equal to something called as true. This will work. Okay. This any is also like the same. Once you declare a variable, any type of data type can be specified. Now you may ask me a question, boss, I'm declaring a variable without even specifying the data type. It is taking any. Now you're even manually specifying any, then it is also doing the same. What is the reason? I mean, what is the use then? What is the use that we are going with any? Any is not being used here. When you go with something called as variable declaration functions, right? For example, I'm going to define a function, add values. Now you say a comma b comma c.